In this lesson, we'll be converting our bar graph coin to a 3D shape. Okay, so you can see how I've already gone through and gotten a lot of this set up for us. So this is just going to make it easier for you not to have to repeat a lot of the steps that we've already gone through as far as extruding text and copying the keyframes and textures, all of that stuff. I want to focus on getting these coins to represent our bar graph. Now these are the original splines that came in from Illustrator, but I don't want to use those. I want to rebuild this so that we can actually have these come in a much more interesting way. So what I want to do is just grab that set of splines, which is going to be this all coins, and just pull this over to the side. Okay, so when I don't have that selected, you'll be able to see those black shapes there, and we can just use them as a guide, but eventually we'll be deleting that set of splines. What I really want to do is focus on this little dollar sign and creating a cylinder that's going to have the look of the coin that we want. So let's go ahead and drop in a cylinder just like that. And obviously that's way too big and it's not facing the right direction. So let's come in and switch that from the Y plus to the Z plus. And we'll bring it over and let's get it to just lay right on top of one of those existing coins. So easiest way to do that would be from our front view. So we'll just kind of get that positioned there. And then we'll bring down the radius. Now the coins that you see here and the coins that you see here are a little bit different in size. The ones over here have been squished just a little bit, so you can see they're a little more narrow than the other ones over here for the legend. So I actually want them to be a little bit smaller, so I'll just take that radius down to a 7, and then we'll work with that. Now I also want to have the dollar sign, and I kind of want to extract that out of there. So what I can do is just go into point mode and I'll delete the outside circle, and we'll come back in later on and reuse the coin that we create that's 3D to replace this one that we have kind of messed up by getting rid of that outside part. Okay, so now we could just kind of put that into place, and you may need to scale it down a little bit, you might find. So what you could do is just come up here to your scale and kind of uniformly scale that down so it fits a little bit better. Okay, let's jump back out to our perspective view, and you can see that that coin is more like a tube, so we need to take down its height and make it much thinner. So right now it's at 7 centimeters, which is probably still too much. Or excuse me, 3. I was still looking at the radius. So probably 1 or 2 would be good for something like this. I think 2 is probably best. Okay, so let's figure out what we want the edges of this to look like. If we go into our caps, we can turn on fillet and make it a little bit more rounded looking, which I think would be nice. And then maybe we also want to have kind of a ring around this. So maybe we get the rounding from our ring so we almost have a little bit of a lip. So let's actually turn the fillet back off for a moment, and let's drop in a torus. Again, that's going to need to be in the Z plus, and we'll jump over to our front view, and let's grab our move tool and position that. Just getting it close for now. We'll get it perfect here in a moment. And I want to bring the ring radius down and the pipe radius down. So we'll zoom back in and kind of reposition now that we're a little bit more in the same scale. And let's take that pipe radius to a 0.5. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's see if we can get this to match up just a little bit better. There we go. let's jump back out to our perspective view and see how this looks now. So it's a little bit off in that we're not really getting a lip from that coin. So let's maybe adjust it now that we know that it's in place. We just need to adjust the ring radius and the pipe radius. So let's just take the pipe radius to a 1. And that is not too bad. It's about the same as the part that was inside of it. And if I zoom out, you can see that's not really all that large and overwhelming. So I think what we could do is just take our cylinder, go into our object, and turn down the height to a 1. There we go. That's looking good. Let's take a look at this from the side and make sure that they're on the inside of each other. So we'll just zoom down here. And sure enough, that looks like that's right in the middle of that torus. Okay, great. So now what I'd like to do is to actually scale up the cylinder just a little bit so it's actually penetrating the middle of that. So we could take the radius up to an 8, and you can see now that it's actually on the inside of that piece. Okay, so far so good. And I don't think we're ever going to be so close to this that we need to really give it any more definition in the geometry. It's probably never going to be closer than this. So I don't think we need to go in and change any of the divisions, but let's just make sure that it doesn't have too many in another direction. So I'm going to turn on my Garot shading with lines for a moment, and that looks very reasonable. Okay, so I'll just turn that back off. And now we pretty much have a coin created for this, but we still have our piece here that's going to give it its little dollar sign. So let's just grab a quick extrude, take this down. Well, actually, we'll leave that at the top and bring this one up to it. Okay, so you can see that that's kind of going way too far in there, so we'll just take the extrude back here. And I don't want it to go through the back because I don't want it to look backwards, so we'll just leave that at a 1. Okay, so that's made us a really nice little coin. And what I can do now is grab both of those pieces that are making the coin, tell it to become editable, and then right click and choose Connect Objects and Delete. And then we'll call this coin body. And then we'll call this dollar sign. And then I'm going to just drop in a null object, and we'll call this coin. And then we'll place both of those under our null. And now we can move the coin around as we wish. There we go. So what we'll be doing later is actually using this coin to create some different things with some MoGraph to actually place them in these columns. So let's come back in the next lesson and we'll use a MoGraph cloner to create our first stack of coins.